Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Week 19 results. So, we have kicked off back in the Overwatch League for June. Obviously, we've been on a little bit of a break, but we are back with 8 fixtures and we will go through the results. And it's been an interesting one. Some teams have not kind of performed to the level that we expected them to, and some have done pretty well. So, let's take a look at these fixtures then, and we started off in the month of June with the London Spitfire taking on the Shanghai Dragons. Now this was a rematch of the only match that London played during the May Melee, and they took the Dragons pretty close back then. But unfortunately, this time it is nowhere near that close, with a 3-0 coming through for the Shanghai Dragons. Now, it was a classic case of good old London Spitfire. For the first two maps, they played their normal roster, and it was a case of not always knowing when to go in. There were some good glimpses from them. The first map was incredibly weird because every single point went 100 to 0 and went to 3 points. So it was 100 to 0 to Shanghai, then it was 100 0 to London, and then it was 100 0 to Shanghai again. And it was notable that it was on mecha base where London dominated. So obviously we know that London do a lot better with the brawly comps, with the Reaper May. And so with that point they were much more successful. But when it came to longer range comps, Shanghai just absolutely ran over the Spitfire. And the interesting thing on the third map, which was Anubis, is that Spitfire ran almost a B roster in some respects, where they brought in Fuse, who we hadn't seen yet, Jihun, they brought in Babel and Shui, who we haven't seen for a little while, and it looked interesting. It looked interesting, but it didn't look massively brilliant either. So yeah, there's not too much to take away from this match for London Spitfire. Again, improvements needed at that team, and Shanghai looking as good as ever. So, moving on to the big match that what we thought would be the big match. It was the New York Excelsior taking on the Seoul Dynasty. And now, you will notice that in my power rankings I said I have a worry about Seoul Dynasty's consistency, and this is a pure example of that. This week, you could have run the normal Orisa Sigma, which Seoul are incredibly good at, right? But instead, they tend to go for the Winston Zarya, where Gesture jumps in and Marvel on the Zarya bubbles him while he goes in. And they use that quite a bit, and it's weird. Seoul looks so good on the double barrier, and they could run it all they want this week, and they decide to do something different. And New York just deal with it. New York with Haxel, let's remember. And Haxel looked good on the May, the Genji, and yeah, it was a weird look. But this ends up as a 3-0 for New York Excelsior. And again, we're asking questions about the Seoul Dynasty. Again, we're asking questions about the regular season form of this Seoul Dynasty side. And this is why I didn't rate them very highly in my power rankings. Because, let's be honest, the Seoul team that took on Shanghai could beat this New York Excelsior team. Yet, for some reason, they come into this week and they just don't look on it. They don't look like they're a team that can be right up there. Even though they look completely different in the May Melee. I honestly think this is going to be a team that has a really weird regular season and comes to light in the playoffs, like London did in the inaugural season. So, yeah, it's a weird thing, the Seoul Dynasty side, but great win for New York. And New York showed us a different side to them, a more chaotic, more aggressive side to them with Haxel in the lineup, and it was really interesting. But moving on, and we had the Paris Eternal taking on the Boston Uprising. So this was a rematch of the match we saw in the May Melee, and this was exactly the same scoreline. So Paris Eternal win at 3-2. Boston nearly take this. Boston are improving. I don't think I can doubt that now. I don't know whether it's just because Paris Eternal Boston might be a bogey team for the Paris Eternal right now. I want to see Boston because if they can play like this against the likes of Toronto, Vancouver, Washington, Houston, they can get wins. So I want to see Boston make this a regular sort of performance. Punk is looking good. Jerry and Colorhex were both good. Colorhex especially came to life this week. He was really good, especially on a Tracer as well. Paris Eternal though, Sparkle. Oh, Sparkle. It was an interesting one, taking a look at Sparkle for the first time in the Overwatch League. His May was okay. It didn't set the world alight, but let's be honest, who sets the world alight on May very often? But it was definitely very serviceable. But Genji, as we know, Sparkle can be very good on a Genji. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. gorgeous Dragon Blades at times. Also the Doomfist, and I think we saw him on the Pharaoh as well. Sparkle is the future of this Paris Eternal side, and him and Soon actually worked really well together. So, and we also saw him and Nico together. I would rather see him and Soon, if I'm being honest. But yeah, Sparkle I think gave Paris the edge here. Without Sparkle, I think it would have been a lot tougher, if not a Boston Uprising win. So yeah, interesting on that one. Interesting, and definitely the closest of the weekend. But Florida Mayhem will take on the Dallas Fuel next. Now, Florida Mayhem had an amazing May. They best in their history. They came second in the May Melee only to the San Francisco Shock and gave them a good run for their money. But Dallas Fuel have been improving. I don't think anyone can deny that. Decay, Doha have been looking good. Gamsu is starting to look good as well. They got a very good support line, and now they've got Paintbrush as well. So Dallas Fuel give an account of themselves here, but it's a 3-1 victory for the Florida Mayhem. Again, BQB is a revelation right now for this Florida Mayhem side. He is so good. Yaki is so good, and statistically they were the best DPS duo in the league in the May Melee. So Florida Mayhem, they're really asserting themselves now, and I'm really starting to think this is a top 4 team. I think they're above the Philadelphia Fusion, to be honest, especially with their May Melee performance over the Philadelphia Fusion. So yeah, Florida Mayhem is definitely one to be keeping an eye out for. Dallas Fuel though, the only worrying thing for Dallas Fuel is Decay especially was in the second half quite quiet. That's what I'll say. I don't know whether that's Florida Mayhem keeping him quiet, and if so, that's a bit worrying, because if Dallas Fuel keep coming up against the big sides and their DPS line gets shut down, very often there's no way out for the Dallas Fuel. They're very heavily reliant on Decay and Doha, and when they don't get the job done, very often Dallas Fuel don't get the job done. So that's just a worrying thing for the Dallas Fuel, I think. But moving on, Atlanta Reign taking on the Los Angeles Gladiators. This is interesting because it's a 3-1 win for the Los Angeles Gladiators. I like that the Gladiators have turned up this weekend and got a good victory over the Atlanta Reign. It was fairly close in some respects, and yeah, Baby Bay didn't kind of pop off like he usually does, in my opinion. We saw a lot from Birdring. We got a 3k Birdring Widow. We always love to see that, don't we? Mira looked good, and we saw a lot of good stuff from the Los Angeles Gladiators during this match. We also saw Jarrow as well. So I think the Gladiators, this is a really good win for them, because we've been wondering where the Atlanta Reign and Gladiators sit, and this is a very big indication. A very big indication. This tells me that Atlanta Reign are firmly mid-pack. Firmly mid-pack. And Gladiators maybe just above that. So yeah, Atlanta Reign, it's a little worrying, I'm not gonna lie. I think actually there was a big difference between the off tanks in this match with Space and Hawk. Space is crazy good for the Gladiators. I would almost probably say that Space is the Gladiators' best player so far this season. Big Goose was really good. Shaz was really good. So it was a good performance for the Gladiators, and it's nice to see them getting on top of one of these matches, because it's been a rough ride, especially their last regular season match was a loss to the Boston Uprising, and that's not great. But moving on, Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Houston Outlaws. There is a big gap in quality between these two teams, and it showed, but the Houston Outlaws did give a good account of themselves. It's 3-0 for the Philadelphia Fusion though. Houston Outlaws, they're still doing this hydration main tank thing, and Muma's kind of, I don't know, perhaps he's set up someone with Bumper because he's just gone missing. But Houston Outlaws, I think, need a main tank. At this point, I think they just need a main tank, because hydration is all very well and good, but he's not a main tank. He's not a main tank to be playing in the Overwatch League week in, week out. I think they need someone who can really lead the team in that main tank role, and I don't think hydration is that. I think hydration is still learning. I think hydration is not, I don't want to be harsh on him because he was a really good DPS player, but he is not looking as good on the main tank, and I think we all expect that. Although he is filling in well, he's not gonna last for the Houston Outlaws. He's not gonna take Houston Outlaws to where they want to go. So they need to sign a main tank, in my opinion. Him and Sado, there's no comparison. Again, the DPS were very good for Fusion. They had to clutch up at times on certain maps to get the win. It was Hisu and Carpe a lot of the time. And yeah, again, Funny Astro looked good. Alarm looked good. We all generally get that. But Houston were by no means completely outclassed here. So I think the display is palatable for the Houston Outlaws, and it should be for their fans as well. Philadelphia Fusion are very good, and we have to remember that. But moving on, Vancouver Titans taking on the Toronto Defiant. So again, this is a rematch of the qualification match in the May Melee between the Titans and the Defiant. An all-Canadian match, we also must say. But it was 3-2 to the Defiant in the May Melee, but this time it's much, much, much more comprehensive for the Toronto Defiant. It's a 3-0 in the end, and something interesting is the fact that Defiant ran Numlocked, and I was rather surprised about that. Numlocked has come in as a player, but I thought he would take on more of a mentor role for the obviously other tank player Beast. Beast has been serviceable, but not brilliant, let's be honest. But Numlocked came straight in, and I think he offers a lot of leadership to this Toronto Defiant side. He also knows Cruz very well from the UK. So I think that was really good for Toronto. Also, they had Shawfall back from his mental reset, and it just meant that Toronto were just a better team, to be honest. Vancouver, obviously the elephant in the room is Shockwave was there, but he has had his Echo taken away. So, yeah, he didn't look as strong as he did in the May Melee when we saw him on that Echo and he was popping off. So, yeah, this is a tale of Vancouver Titans going on as they were in the regular season before the May Melee, basically, and Toronto Defiant looking that's a good win, let's be honest. That's a good win for Toronto Defiant. That's what they needed to do against the likes of Vancouver Titans. But our last match is the Los Angeles Valiant taking on the Washington Justice, and this is a shame, actually, because it's a 3-0 for the Los Angeles Valiant. And, well, I thought Washington Justice would put up more of a fight. And I think I know the reason why. Now, let's not take this away from the Valiant. They are a very good team, and actually they're up until about 8th now, I think. 7th or 8th. We'll look at the standings in a minute. But a very good win for the Valiant. And the thing with the Washington Justice is they've got really good parts now. When you look at this team, they've got really good parts. They've got Stitch, they've got Raw. Raw can be good, let's be honest. He may not look great now, but he just needs some direction. They have Jenu, obviously. They have a great support line, and they have Tuba alongside Stitch. And I'm sure they'll probably be looking at others to come in as well. But it looks like a team of parts with no direction. And to be honest, that's obviously coaching. And the Washington Justice rebuild really hasn't finished yet. You'll be lucky if it's halfway there. They've shipped out half of their backroom staff, and half of them haven't been replaced properly yet anyway. They recently got rid of their head coach, John Galt, I believe on like their 6th, and they haven't replaced him yet. So this Washington Justice side doesn't have a head coach at all. So I still think the backroom is working itself out of the Washington Justice, and once this Justice side get some direction and some coaching, I really think this side will improve. But it depends how long Washington take to sort that backroom out. I always say this, and people meme the coaches in the Overwatch League sometimes, but I will always say that it's all well and good having a great selection of players, but if they've got no direction, they've got no idea what to do. And I think London had the same problem last season when their coaching staff changed after the inaugural season. They lost one of their coaches to the Seoul Dynasty, and it all kind of like London Spitfire. Oh, there's great players, fantastic players, but there's no direction. They don't seem to know what they're doing half the time. So that's what I think Washington Justice need to sort out. And once they get some direction, once they get some coaching in, I think this team will improve. It's probably going to take a little while though, so we have to be Washington Justice fans will have to be patient, but there should be some good times ahead. But that is those are our results for this week. Let's take a look at the standings. Shanghai Dragons are topping the league right now with those 15 wins. Philadelphia Fusion coming in at that 2nd place. San Francisco Shock in 3rd, and New York Excelsior in 4th. Florida Mayhem still in 5th. Guangzhou Charge will be in 6th, rounding out your top 6. Paris Eternal are in 7th. Los Angeles Valiant all the way up to 8 now, on a positive record as well, 7 and 6. So the Valiant are doing very well and overachieving considering what we thought they would be doing earlier in the season. Hangzhou Spark are up to 9th. We haven't seen the Spark this week. Seoul Dynasty are now in 10th, and well, yeah, it's not been a good week for the Dynasty, and they need to bounce back next week. Los Angeles Gladiators are in 11th, making up a little bit of space. Atlanta Reign all the way down in 12th now, though. Firmly, well, they're actually below the middle of the pack now, so that's not where Atlanta Reign expected to be. I mean, at the start of the season, we thought this team would be a top 6 team, and it's not happened. Toronto Defiant are up to 13th now. Houston Outlaws are in 14th. London down in 15th. Yeah, well, London have got some work to do. Dallas Fuel in 16th, Chengdu Hunters in 17th, Washington Justice in 18th, Vancouver Titans in 19th, and Boston Uprising in 20th. But to be quite honest, I think that bottom half will start moving around very interestingly in the coming weeks when teams work things out, especially if Washington gets some good coaches in. If Vancouver start to click, Boston Uprising already looking improved. Dallas, I think they're a better team than 16th, to be quite honest. And Chengdu Hunters, who knows about Chengdu Hunters, and who knows about London Spitfire. So that's 2 teams I worry for, actually, London Spitfire and Chengdu Hunters, especially. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. So, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.